The persistent hum of the warp drive was the only music Ronin needed. It was a low, vibrating thrum that resonated through the deck plates of the ironclad, traveling up through the soles of his heavy combat boots. To anyone else, the ship was just a hunk of metal, hurtling through the void. To Ronin, she was a living thing, breathing recycled oxygen and sweating hydraulic fluid. He ran a hand along the cold metallic wall of the corridor, his calloused palm catching on the rivets. The walls here were tight, claustrophobic to the uninitiated, bathed in the sickly warm yellow glow of the artificial overhead strips. One of the lights flickered, a buzzing annoyance in the otherwise rhythmic silence. He'd have to fix that later, assuming he survived the next hour. Ronin stopped before the heavy blast door of the holding cell. He adjusted the collar of his flight suit. It was worn, frayed at the edges, much like the man wearing it. He checked the tray in his left hand, protein blocks and water. Not a 5-star meal, but it would keep a prisoner alive. He punched the code into the keypad with deliberate heavy strokes. The hydraulic hiss of the door opening cut through the engine's hum like a gasp. Inside, the cell was sparse. A cot bolted to the floor, a waste unit, and walls made of reinforced titanium alloy. And in the center of it all, sitting with the unnatural stillness of a predator waiting for the cage to open, was Elara. She didn't look like a prisoner. Even in the dim, warm light that cast long, sharp shadows across the metal floor, she looked like royalty in exile. Her skin was a pale, iridescent violet that seemed to shimmer when she moved. Her eyes were solid black pools devoid of white, reflecting the yellow lights like polished obsidian. She was a matriarch of the Krylian Dominion, dangerous fast, and currently very unhappy. "Dinner," Ronin grunted. He stepped inside. The door hissed shut behind him, sealing them in. Elara didn't move. Her gaze was fixed on his neck. Ronin knew that look. He'd seen it in the eyes of wolves back on Earth, and he'd seen it in the eyes of desperate men in the trenches of the Orion Wars. It was the look of someone calculating the distance between life and death. "You keep me in a box, human," Elara said. Her voice was melodic but carried an edge sharp enough to cut glass. "Is this how your species treats nobility?" "This is how I treat threats," Ronin replied, his voice a low rumble. He set the tray down on the small magnetic table. "Eat," he turned his back. It was a calculated risk, a test. He knew the Krylians prided themselves on speed. They considered humans lumbering, primitive apes, heavy gravity worlders with dense bones and slow reflexes. Ronin took a step toward the door, counting the seconds in his head. 1, 2. The air shifted. There was no sound of footsteps, only the sudden displacement of air. Ronin didn't turn. He didn't have to. He braced his feet, locking his knees slightly, grounding himself against the deck. She hit him with the force of a hydraulic ram. Elara was on his back, her legs wrapping around his torso, her arms locking around his head. It was a perfect takedown maneuver. Against any other species, against any other human, the neck would have snapped instantly, but Ronin was built differently. He was built from the scar tissue of 100 bad decisions and the genetic density of a high-gravity survivor. He didn't stumble. He stood there like an old oak tree weathering a gale. Then came the pain, or what should have been pain. Elara pulled his head back, exposing the jugular. Her jaw unhinged slightly, revealing rows of needle-sharp, translucent fangs. Krylian venom was legendary, a neurotoxin that liquefied the nervous system in seconds. It was their ultimate weapon, their kiss of death. She struck. Ronin felt the sharp pressure of her fangs against the side of his neck. He felt them puncture the skin. He felt the venom pump. Silence filled the room, heavy and thick. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the frantic beating of Elara's heart against his back. She held on, waiting for the convulsions. Waiting for him to drop, Ronin reached up. His hand was large, scarred and steady. He grabbed the back of her combat suit right at the nape of her neck. "You done?" he asked. Elara froze. Her fangs were still embedded in his neck. She pulled back, her black eyes widening in absolute shock. A trickle of blood ran down Ronin's neck, staining his collar, but he wasn't shaking. He wasn't screaming, he wasn't dying. She released her grip on his torso and scrambled back, hitting the cold metal wall with a clang. She wiped her mouth, staring at him as if he were a ghost. "Impossible," she hissed. "The venom. It stops the heart of a Grogan bull in 3 beats. You are just a human." Ronin turned slowly. He reached up and wiped the blood from his neck with his thumb, looking at the red smear as if it were engine grease. Then a low, gravelly chuckle rumbled in his chest. It wasn't a mocking laugh, not entirely. It was the laugh of a man who had walked through hell so many times the devil knew him by name. "Nice try, Princess," Ronin said. He stepped toward her. She pressed herself flatter against the wall, her arrogance replaced by primal fear. For the first time, she realized she wasn't locked in with a jailer. She was locked in with something else entirely. "How?" she whispered. "Why aren't you dead?" Ronin leaned against the bulkhead, crossing his arms. The yellow light highlighted the deep lines on his face, the silver in his stubble. "You assume a lot about humans. You assume we're all the same soft, squishy diplomats you meet at the Galactic Council. But there are different breeds of men, Elara. Some break, some bend." He tapped his chest. "And some of us just absorb the hit." This was the moment, the shift. Ronin saw it in her eyes. The realization that her biological superiority, the weapon she had relied on her entire life, was useless here. It's a hard thing to watch someone's worldview shatter, but sometimes you have to break a bone to reset it properly. If you've ever looked a problem in the eye that should have killed you and smiled back, you know exactly the kind of satisfaction I was feeling right then. It's not about arrogance, it's about knowing what you're made of when the lights go out. "Sit," Ronin ordered. He pointed a thick finger at the cot. Elara hesitated, then obeyed. Her legs were shaking. "What are you?" "I'm the guy flying the ship," Ronin said, grabbing a cloth from his pocket and dabbing his neck. The wound was already clotting. "And right now I'm the only thing standing between you and the vacuum outside. So we're going to establish some ground rules." He paced the small cell. 3 steps forward, turn, 3 steps back. The tight space didn't bother him. He'd spent 20 years in the Navy, living in tin cans smaller than this. "Rule 1, Ronin said, his voice flat and hard. "No more biting, I don't care if it's instinct. You do it again, I put you in stasis. And stasis is cold, Princess. You won't like it." Elara nodded slowly. Her eyes were fixed on the wound on his neck. "You are immune." "Resistance," Ronin corrected. "Built up over time. Spent 10 years in the jungle moons of Vegan 4. Everything there bites, stings, or sprays acid. You get bit enough times, you either die or you stop caring. I stopped caring a long time ago." He looked at her, really looked at her. Beneath the alien features and the lethal biology, he saw a soldier. A defeated one, but a soldier nonetheless. He respected that. He didn't like her, but he respected the attempt. She had seen an opening and took it. "That was just tactical. Why didn't you kill me?" Elara asked quietly. "After I attacked. Protocol dictates execution," Ronin scoffed. "Protocol is for officers who sit behind desks and look at star charts. Out here in the black, you don't throw away useful assets. And you don't kill someone just because they're trying to survive. I'd have done the same thing in your place." He saw the confusion ripple across her face. Mercy was a foreign concept to her kind. To the Krylians, mercy was weakness. But Ronin knew the truth. Mercy was a luxury only the truly strong could afford. Suddenly, the ironclad shuddered violently. The hum of the engine spiked in pitch, turning into a mechanical scream. The warm yellow lights flickered and died, plunging the cell into darkness for a heartbeat before the red emergency strobes kicked in, bathing the metallic walls in the color of fresh blood. "Bridge," Ronin growled, tapping the comms unit in his ear. "Status. Static. Just static, damn it," Ronin muttered. He looked at Elara. The red light made her violet skin look almost black. She was tensed, ready to spring again. "Stay here," Ronin commanded. He moved to the door. "The stabilizers," Elara said, her voice cutting through the alarm. "The vibration pattern. It's the starboard stabilizer coupling. It's loose." Ronin paused, his hand hovering over the keypad. He looked back at her. "How do you know that?" "I am a pilot, human," she said, regaining a shred of her dignity. "I know how a ship sounds when it is bleeding energy. If you do not bypass the coupling, the torque will tear your hull apart in 3 minutes." Ronin listened. Beneath the alarm, he heard it. A rhythmic grinding sound deep in the ship's gut. She was right. He knew his ship, but she knew physics. "I can't fix it from the cockpit," Ronin said, thinking aloud. "I have to go down to engineering. Manual override." "You won't make it in time," Elara said coldly. "Not with those slow human legs. The corridor to engineering is 3 decks down." Ronin grit his teeth. She was right again. He was strong, but he wasn't fast. Not Krylian fast. He looked at the prisoner. The woman who had tried to kill him 5 minutes ago. The woman whose venom was currently circulating in his blood, giving him a mild headache but nothing more. "If the ship tears apart, we both die," Ronin said. "Yes," Elara agreed. If I let you out, you might try to kill me again." "Yes," she said honestly. "But if I kill you before the ship is fixed, I die too. I cannot pilot human tech, I need you alive." It was the logic of the battlefield. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, or at least my tool. Ronin weighed the odds. He looked at the blast door, then at the slender, lethal alien sitting on the cot. "Get up," Ronin said. Elara stood surprised. "You are releasing me?" "I'm deputizing you," Ronin growled. "Don't make me regret it." He punched the code. The door hissed open. The corridor outside was a chaotic tunnel of flashing red lights and screaming sirens. The air smelled of ozone and burnt wiring. "Engineering is aft," Ronin shouted over the noise. "Main conduit, there's a manual lever. Red handle, pull it down, lock it." Elara stepped into the corridor. She looked at Ronin, her black eyes searching his face for any sign of deception. "You trust me?" "Hell no," Ronin said, unholstering his sidearm and checking the charge. "But I trust you want to live." "Move!" She moved, it was a blur. 1 second she was there. The next she was a violet streak tearing down the corridor, moving faster than any human could track. Ronin watched her go, then turned and sprinted toward the bridge. He had to keep the ship steady while she worked. He slammed into the pilot's seat, his hands flying over the controls. The ironclad was bucking like a wild bronco. Structural integrity alerts popped up on the screens in angry red boxes. "Come on, old girl, hold together," Ronin whispered to the ship. He watched the monitors. He could see Elara on the internal sensors. She was moving through the ventilation shafts now, bypassing the blocked corridors. She was fast, incredibly fast. "Engineering reached." Her voice crackled over the ship's intercom. She had found a headset. "The lever is jammed. Kick it!" Ronin roared into the comms. "It's mechanical, force it." "It will not move," Elara grunted. He could hear the strain in her voice. Even with her speed, she lacked the brute mass required for human heavy machinery. "Use the pry bar on the wall," Ronin instructed, wrestling with the flight stick. "Leverage, princess, use leverage." A moment of silence. Then a loud metallic clang that resonated through the hull. "It is done," Elara shouted. Immediately, the violent shaking stopped. The engine's scream settled back into a hum, albeit a rough one. The red lights ceased, replaced by the flickering yellow auxiliary power. Ronin slumped back in his chair, exhaling a breath he felt he'd been holding since he left Earth. "Good work," Ronin said into the comms. "Now get back to the brig." There was a pause, a long, heavy silence. Ronin's hand drifted to his pistol. Had she run? Was she making her way to the escape pods? "I am coming to the bridge," Elara said. "That wasn't the deal," Ronin said, his voice tightening. "The deal was survival," she replied. "I saved your ship. I believe that earns me a negotiation." Ronin stared at the sealed door of the bridge. He could lock it. He could vent the corridor she was in. He had total control. But he remembered the way she had looked at him in the cell. The confusion. The respect. He holstered his pistol. "Door's open," Ronin said. "But try anything and I throw you out the airlock, no suit." The bridge door slid open. Elara stood there, breathing hard, a smear of grease on her cheek. She looked less like a princess now and more like part of the crew. She stepped onto the bridge, her eyes scanning the complex array of human controls with curiosity. "Your technology is crude," she noted, walking over to the co-pilot station but not sitting down. "Everything is manual heavy. Redundant. It's built to last," Ronin said, swiveling his chair to face her. "We don't rely on fancy neural links or biointerfaces. When the power dies, a lever still works. As you just found out." Elara touched the back of the co-pilot's chair. "You called me princess. Why?" "It's a term of endearment," Ronin lied smoothly. "Means you act like you own the place." She tilted her head, her black eyes narrowing. "You are a strange creature, Ronin. You bleed, but you do not die. You imprison me, but you trust me with your life. You are a paradox." "I'm a human," Ronin said, standing up. He towered over her, even though she was tall for her kind. "We're full of surprises." He walked past her to the engineering panel on the wall, checking the readouts. The heat from his body radiated in the cold air of the bridge. He could feel her watching him. Not with hunger this time, but with calculation. "My people," Elara began, her voice softer. "We are taught that humans are livestock. Weak, fragile, that you expanded into the stars by accident." Ronin snorted, tapping a gauge. "Yeah, well, we're stubborn livestock. When I bit you," she stepped closer, invading his personal space. The scent of ozone and something floral, like night-blooming jasmine, drifted off her skin. I tasted your blood. It was bitter, like scorched earth. Comes with the territory, Ronin said, not backing down. Too much bad coffee and radiation. No, she shook her head. It tasted like sorrow. Ronin froze. His hand stopped over the controls. He looked at her, and for a second the hard mask of the veteran slipped. Just a fraction. You can taste emotions? He asked, his voice low. Biochemical markers, Elara explained. Cortisol, adrenaline, but also deeper things. Your blood is heavy with loss, Ronin. You have lost everything. The silence on the bridge was deafening. Only the hum of the engine and the faint beep of the radar filled the space. Ronin looked away, staring out the viewport at the endless stars. Everyone loses things out here, Ronin said, his voice rough. That's why we keep moving. If you stop, the ghosts catch up. It's a heavy thing carrying the past. Most men try to drink it away or fight it away. But you can't outrun your own shadow. Sometimes it takes a stranger, an enemy, to point out the baggage you didn't even know you were still hauling. If you've ever had someone read your history just by looking in your eyes, you know it's more terrifying than any weapon. So, Ronin said, clearing his throat and turning back to the business at hand. He needed to re-establish control. We're 4 days from the nearest outpost. The stabilizer is jury-rigged, and I have a prisoner who knows my ship better than I do. I'm not a prisoner, Elara said, sitting down in the co-pilot's chair. She crossed her legs, looking regal even in the utilitarian seat. I am a temporary consultant. Ronin raised an eyebrow. Consultant? My people will come for me, she said. When they do, they will destroy this ship, unless I tell them not to. Is that a threat? It is a fact, Elara said. But I am curious. You survived my venom. You have a resilience I have never seen. I wish to study this. I'm not a lab rat, Ronin grumbled. And I am not a mechanic, Elara countered. But we both played our parts today. Keep me out of the cell, Ronin, and I will keep the Krylian hunting parties off your scanners. I know their frequencies. Ronin looked at her. It was a deal with the devil. But out here in the deep black, sometimes the devil was the only friend you had. One condition, Ronin said. Name it. You touch the controls, you ask first. You bite me again and I pull your teeth. Clear? Elara smiled. It was a terrifying sight. Rows of translucent needles gleaming in the yellow light. But it wasn't a threat. It was a challenge. Clear, she said. Ronin grunted and turned back to the helm. Course is set. Get comfortable, princess. It's going to be a long trip. Ronin sat in the pilot's chair, his eyes scanning the long-range sensors, but his mind was on the shotgun across his lap. He ran an oil rag over the barrel, the smell of gun solvent mixing with the stale air of the cockpit. It was a comforting smell. A smell that meant preparation. You clean that weapon as if it were a religious artifact, Elara observed. She was standing by the viewport, watching the streaks of starlight blur past. She hadn't slept. Ronin wasn't sure if Krylian slept, or if they just entered a state of lower metabolic hate. It's an antique, Ronin grunted, snapping the breech open to check the shells. Pump action, no electronics, no biometric locks, just kinetic energy and intent. Primitive, she said, though her tone lacked the bite it had 3 days ago. Reliable, Ronin corrected, like me. The dynamic had shifted in the cramped confines of the ironclad. They weren't friends. They were two soldiers stuck in a foxhole, waiting for the artillery to start. There's a specific kind of intimacy that comes from shared danger. You don't have to like the guy next to you, but you have to trust that he'll shoot in the right direction. We are entering the nebula, Elara said, pointing a slender finger at the swirling cloud of purple gas on the screen. The ionization will mask our heat signature, but it will also blind our sensors. Flying blind, Ronin nodded. My favorite way to travel. Suddenly, the proximity alarm screamed, a harsh, jagged sound that cut through the silence like a knife. The yellow lights in the cabin turned a sickly orange. Contact, Ronin shouted, throwing the rag aside and gripping the flight stick. Where did they come from? They were waiting, Elara hissed. She slid into the co-pilot's seat, her fingers flying over the controls with a speed Ronin couldn't match. It is a Dominion hunter-killer, the Ravager. It is my brother's ship. Ronin wrestled the ironclad into a hard bank, the artificial gravity compensators whining in protest. Your brother? Does he want a family reunion? He wants my head, Elara said coldly. And he wants your ship as a trophy. The ship shuddered as a plasma bolt clipped the shields. The hum of the engine turned into a roar. Sparks rained down from the overhead console, landing on Ronin's flight suit. "Shields at 40%, Ronin barked. "We can't outrun a hunter-killer. Not with that jury-rigged stabilizer." "Then we do not run," Elara said. She looked at him, her black eyes burning with a fierce intensity. "We hide, kill the engines." "Kill them?" Ronin looked at her like she was crazy. "We'll be sitting ducks." "The nebula gas," she insisted. "If we are cold, they cannot see us. They will pass right by, trust me." Ronin looked at the tactical display. The red dot of the enemy ship was closing fast. He had 3 seconds to decide. He looked at the alien woman who had tried to kill him, now fighting to save them. He flipped the master kill switch. The ironclad died. The roar of the engine cut out instantly. The hum of the life support faded to a whisper. The lights died, plunging them into absolute darkness save for the ghostly purple light of the nebula filtering through the viewport. Silence, heavy and suffocating, crushed in on them. "Don't move," Elara whispered in the dark. "Don't even breathe." Ronin sat like a statue, his hand resting on the cold metal of his shotgun. He could hear his own heartbeat, loud and slow in his ears. Through the viewport, a massive shadow glided past. The Ravager. It was a sleek, predatory shark of a ship bristling with cannons. It passed so close Ronin could see the welding seams on its hull. It paused, hovering, searching. This is the part they don't show you in the recruitment videos. The waiting, the silence, the knowing that death is just a bulkhead away, listening for you to make a mistake. If you've ever held your breath until your lungs burned, praying that the monster outside the door moves on, you know the cold sweat running down my back right now. Minutes stretched into hours. Finally, the shadow moved. The enemy ship accelerated, disappearing into the purple fog. Ronin let out a long, slow breath. "They're gone. For now," Elara said. Her voice was shaking slightly. Not from fear, Ronin realized. From rage. He will circle back. We need to be gone before he does. Ronin reached for the ignition sequence, but a metallic thud reverberated through the hull. It didn't come from the engines. It came from the airlock. Ronin and Elara froze. They looked at each other in the dim purple light. They didn't leave, Ronin realized, his voice a growl. They dropped a boarding pod. "My brother does not trust sensors," Elara said, standing up. Her claws extended with a snicked sound. "He prefers personal verification." "Grab a weapon," Ronin ordered, standing up and racking the slide of his shotgun. Click-clack. The sound was loud and final in the silent ship. "I am the weapon," Elara replied. "Suit yourself. They're at the starboard airlock. That corridor is a kill box." They moved out of the bridge, moving into the tight metallic guts of the ship. The emergency lights were flickering now, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The air was getting cold without the main power. Ronin could see his breath misting in the air. They reached the junction just as the airlock blew. Explosive bolts shattered the inner door, sending shrapnel pinging off the walls. Through the smoke, 3 figures emerged. They were Krylians encased in black bioarmor, their faces hidden behind sleek helmets. They moved with liquid grace, rifles raised. "Clear the hole!" Ronin roared. He stepped out from cover and pulled the trigger. The shotgun boomed, a thunderclap in the confined space. The spread of buckshot hit the lead boarder in the chest. The kinetic force lifted the alien off his feet and threw him back into the airlock. His armor held, but the impact shattered his ribs. "Cover fire," Ronin yelled, ducking back as plasma bolts sizzled past his head, melting the bulkhead where his face had been a second ago. Elara didn't duck, she moved. She used the wall as a springboard, launching herself over Ronin's head. She was a blur of violet motion. She landed amidst the 2 remaining boarders. It wasn't a fight, it was a dissection. She moved inside the reach of their long rifles, her claws finding the soft seals of their armor. One went down, clutching his throat. The other spun, bringing his rifle butt down towards Elara's head. "Down!" Ronin shouted. Elara dropped into a crouch instantly. Ronin fired over her head. The second shot took the last boarder in the helmet visors. The glass shattered and the alien crumpled. Silence returned to the corridor, punctuated only by the hiss of the damaged airlock and the smell of cordite. Elara stood up, breathing heavily. She looked at the bodies. Dominion elites. "My brother is not taking chances." "Neither am I," Ronin said. He walked over to the bodies, checking them for signs of life. He kicked a rifle away from a twitching hand. "We need to get to the engine room. If they have a beacon, more are coming." "Ronin," Elara said, her voice was strange. Strained, he turned. She was clutching her side. Violet blood was seeping between her fingers, dark and thick in the dim light. "You're hit." Ronin said. He didn't ask. He stated it. He moved to her side, his large hands surprisingly gentle as he checked the wound. A plasma graze cauterized but deep. "It is nothing," she gritted out, her knees buckling. Ronin caught her before she hit the deck. He effortlessly scooped her up, carrying her with one arm while keeping his shotgun raised with the other. "Engine room," he said. "Now." He moved through the ship with a purpose. He could feel her shivering against him. Her metabolism was crashing. "Put me down," she whispered. "I slow you down." "Leave me, save the ship." Ronin kept walking. "Shut up, princess, that's an order." "Why?" she demanded, her voice weak. "I am your enemy, I am a monster." Ronin kicked the engine room door open and laid her on the workbench. He began rummaging through the med kit on the wall. "You're my crew," Ronin said, ripping open a packet of biogel. "And I don't leave crew behind." He applied the gel to her wound. She hissed in pain, her back arching off the table. He held her down with one hand, his eyes locked on hers. "Listen to me," Ronin said, his voice low and intense. "Out here, blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty does. You stood your ground back there. You didn't run. That makes you one of us." Elara stared at him. The pain was fading, replaced by the cooling numbness of the gel. She looked at this human, this scarred, stubborn, aging male who refused to die and refused to let her die. "You humans," she murmured. "You are illogical." "Yeah, well," Ronin smirked, checking the readout on the engine core. "Keeps life interesting." He turned to the main console. "I'm overriding the safety on the warp core. We're going to jump inside the nebula." "That is suicide," Elara said, trying to sit up. "The gravitational shear." "We'll tear the Ravager apart if they try to follow," Ronin finished. "But Ironclad is built like a brick. She'll hold, she has to." He looked at her. "Ready to roll the dice?" Elara managed a weak smile. "Do it." Ronin slammed his hand onto the throttle. The universe twisted. The engine roared. Not a mechanical sound anymore, but a primal scream of physics being bent until it broke. The ship lurched violently, metal screamed. Ronin held onto the console, his knuckles white. Elara gripped the edge of the workbench. For 10 seconds, the world was nothing but noise and vibration. Then silence, smooth humming silence. The lights flickered and steadied. The warm yellow glow returned, solid and reassuring. Ronin checked the navigation. "Clear space," he exhaled. "We're out, no pursuit." He slumped against the console, wiping sweat from his brow. He looked over at Elara. She was sitting up, inspecting the bandage on her side. "We survived," she said, sounding surprised. "Did you doubt me?" Ronin asked, holstering his shotgun. "Yes," she admitted, "but I am learning." She slid off the workbench, steady on her feet now. She walked over to him, extending a hand. It was a human gesture, clumsy but sincere. "Thank you, Ronin." Ronin looked at her hand. Then he took it. Her skin was cool, his was warm. A connection between two worlds that should have been at war. "Don't get soft on me, princess," Ronin gruffed. "You still owe me for the airlock door." "Put it on my tab," she replied, a glint of humor in her black eyes. Ronin turned back to the viewport. The stars were steady now. The infinite black was no longer a threat, it was a road. "Set course for the outpost," Ronin said. "Get some rest, you take second watch." "Aye, Captain," she said. Ronin watched her leave the bridge. He turned back to the stars, his hand resting on the dashboard of his ship. He was tired, his bones ached. But he was alive, and for the first time in a long time, the ship didn't feel so empty. There are moments out here that define you. Not the battles you win, but the people you choose to stand beside when the odds are zero. Most people go through life looking for a safe harbor. But if you're the kind of person who finds peace in the storm, as long as you have the right person watching your back, well, then you understand why I'm still flying. Ronin smiled just a little and pushed the throttle forward, into the black.